Hi, Anna.
Where is she? We're not getting any audio. Also, no volume.
Yes, we can kind of hear you. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Cool. Okay, I'll hold the microphone really close to mouth, so you should be able to hear me okay.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm so happy to see you guys. I'm so honored that you took the time to watch some of my work. That is really great. A lot of people don't take the time.
So they had some questions for you based on your videos. Do you want me to read those questions to you?
Yeah, or do you want to start with you guys had some really good questions, and I don't know the answers to all of them. So I don't know how you want to do it. If you want to do one at a time, or what's
Sure.
best for you all?
Sure, we could do one at a time, and then they might have some other questions that come up.
Yeah,
Okay,
that sounds great.
let me pull them up. And then, do you have them in front of you, or should I pull them up?
I think I
Where
do.
does she live? That's a good question.
Sorry,
I
I've
feel
been
like that's
traveling,
New
and so I'm on my phone right now.
Oh, I can find it.
I
Don't
have a
worry.
list.
What room
I
are
have
you
a
staying
list.
in?
Sarah has a list, Anna.
Okay, fantastic.
Hi. Okay, do you want me to read them or do you want to?
Sure, you read.
What is your home address? Where is she? Can we ask her?
Can you not read? Alright guys, so the first questions we had were about your film Welcome to America. The first question is, how did you find out about Yenny?
So that's a really interesting story. So I worked a lot of films, as you guys know, because I saw some of you working on your film, take like a ton of people to work on. And so I have a really good friend who's also a filmmaker, and she told me about what was happening with Yenny because my family lives in Phoenix, which is about an hour from Yenny's detention center in Eloy. And so I was in Phoenix already, and my friend told me there's a woman getting out of detention, and she might need some help. And so I said, I'm here, let me know. I'm going to bring some food, something like that, if she needs anything. And then it turned out that the group of women that had made it possible for Yenny to travel across the country actually wanted to have media coverage. They wanted newspapers to know about her because they wanted people to show up in New York when she got there. And so my friend, who's also a journalist and a filmmaker, reached out to people that we know at newspapers, and so she reached out to Time, and Time said we'd like to publish that. And so the day after I found out about Yenny getting out, I met her for the first time right outside of the detention center. So I met her through my friend who knew the women that were organizing to raise money for her.
So when making the film, what was the hardest and most emotional experience for you?
Say that one more time?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm far from the mic. In making the film, what was the hardest and the most emotional experience for you?
So, the whole thing was really emotional. The part that I didn't film the whole thing. I only filmed the first half of it. So I was with Yenny from Phoenix to Colorado. So we were together for about 28 hours straight. And the thing, I'm sorry, there's a truck going past. I think being close to someone after they've experienced trauma like that is obviously much harder for Yenny, who was going through it. But it was intense for us and for the drivers as well, because she'd experienced some really horrible things. And so just to be around her as she was going through that was really emotional. But I would say the most emotional part was when she spoke to her kids on the phone, which is in the film. I was crying while I was filming that, so yeah.
And so how did the film impact you?
I think issues around immigration are something that are really important to me. I've had a lot of feelings about them. And I think just like, again, being that close to, I've had the privilege to meet a lot of people who are new to this country, who are trying to get into this country, who've left the country. And I think anytime we can learn from people whose experiences we don't share is really valuable. So I feel like it just impacts how I feel about current policies, I guess.
And how is Jenny doing now?
Yenny is living in Greensboro, North Carolina, with her family, and she's awaiting her asylum case. So I believe she does not have a work permit, but she is allowed to stay in North Carolina legally.
And then we had some questions about filmmaking itself. What equipment do you use, and how is the film funded?
Yeah, so those are always really important questions. I think equipment is important in as long as you feel comfortable using it. So you can make a film. I know you guys were working on the films with iPads. That's awesome. Anything that you feel like you have control over is great. I personally use a Canon camera, a D300, which is a cinema camera. It's great. I love it. The problem with filmmaking is that it's a really expensive profession. And so the cameras change every few years, and so I'll probably have to upgrade my equipment soon. But that film was shot with my Canon C300, as well as some of it was shot with my Canon 5D Mark III, which is a DSLR camera. There's one, we used a little bit of cell phone footage that one of the drivers filmed while she was driving. She put her cell phone like behind her like this. Yeah, and then I just have a few different lenses, and we usually put wireless microphones on the people that were filming. And then that film was funded by Time. So once Time agreed that they wanted to publish it, they paid for our expenses and they paid for our time.
Thank you. Students, does anyone else have any questions about that film in particular? Welcome to America. Yeah, Luke, nice and loud.
So what was your favorite and least favorite part of the movie?
My favorite part of the movie, like once it was finished and made?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I really love when the woman Janie from the beginning comes back to meet Yenny again. I think that their connection was really special, and I love seeing them get to be reunited. And we were not able to film when she met her children, which was, I think, probably good. By the time they got to New York, there was a lot of other, as you can see in some of the film, there's a lot of people there. And I think it was really intense for Yenny to have 10 cameras on her at one time and microphones in her face. And so I think when she met with her children, she really needed to be alone. And so I think it was really good that nobody was there. But if that had been in film, that probably would have been my favorite part.
Anyone else have questions about Welcome to America? Yeah, Joshua.
How long did it take to make?
How long did it take to make? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it took, Yenny trip took her, I think, 4 days. And so that filming took 4 days. And then my friend and my colleague Emily filmed the second half. She probably filmed another 2 days in New York. Once, like, the stuff at the end of the film where Yenny is with kids on the rooftop, that was a few days after she'd gotten to New York. And then they took, to Time, there was a team at Time magazine that edited it. A woman named Arkita did most of the editing, and I think it took her about 3 weeks. So it came out in July, and it came out at the end of July, and we started filming it like June 28th, I think.
Kate?
Did you stay with Yenny for the second part of the movie?
Sorry, but can someone else repeat that one?
Did you stay with her for the rest of the movie after you got filming?
Did you stay with her?
Sorry, one of the teachers.
Yeah, did you stay with Yenny for the rest of the movie after you stopped filming? Is that what it was? Yeah.
So I left from Colorado. So I was with her for like, because of a lot of issues with the drive, it's not that long of a drive, but it took us 22 hours. So we were in the car for 22 hours together. And then I went to the airport in Denver and I flew back to Phoenix, and someone else met up with them in Chicago, and then Emily met them in Pittsburgh. So I was only with her for 2 days.
Does anyone else have questions about that film? Natalie?
Had you met her before the movie? Before you met her then?
No, I hadn't met her before. I just heard about her and was in touch with Janie, the woman who's in the beginning of the film. I was in touch with her before, and in touch with some of the other organizers before. But no, I met Yanni for the first time the night before we left Phoenix, and that's always like, you have to be. I think it's really important to be respectful of people and not usually start filming them right away. So I met her without my camera first.
Oh, anyone else have questions about this film?
Oh, yes.
So the next film there was a lot of questions about is La Graduación. So where did you get the idea?
Yeah, cool.
Where did you get the idea to do that film?
Oh,
So also what happens, I work a lot in journalism, and so sometimes we can, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this, sometimes we do things, I'm a freelancer, so I'm independent, so sometimes I pitch stories. I'll say, I think this is a really cool idea, I want you to publish it, like, will you let me make it? And sometimes they give you assignments, so it's something that someone higher up in the news organization has decided is an important story, and they ask you to film it. So this one was one of those. So I didn't actually find that story. My one of my first jobs in journalism was to work with Univision News, and so I was in their newsroom in Miami, and it was actually my third day of work, and they said, you have to go to Boston. This amazing woman is graduating, and we want to film it and publish it before her graduation. So I didn't find that story, but someone else. So I went to Boston with a writer from Univision, and we worked on that together.
So what did you think when you heard that an illegal immigrant was graduating from Harvard?
I think it's awesome. I again work a lot within the undocumented community, and I think there's some misunderstandings around who the folks are in that community, and so it was not a surprise to me that she was graduating, or that she was at Harvard. I was surprised, I guess, that Harvard had been so helpful and accepting, because that's not always the case with institutions in the U.S. But yeah, I was really excited for her.
When did she graduate?
When? That would have been 2016 that took place.
And then the students would like to know if there was any other undocumented immigrants in her class.
I don't believe there were, but she was also in a specific. She was in I think it was Harvard's public. I'm forgetting the actual name of the school, but it was a fairly small graduating class. I think it was about 100 people.
And then, do you know what her first job was after graduating, or what she's up to now?
She lives in Texas now. I believe she's working in. Local politics in Texas. But I'm not positive doing exactly what. And this was her graduate program, so she had already gone through undergraduate. And I forget where she went to school for undergrad. But so she was just finishing a 2-year graduate program.
Does anyone have any other questions about La Graduación? Okay. The next film they want to talk about is poetry.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what impact did this man's story and all the others have on you? And what was your favorite part of this person's story?
I think, again, I just feel so lucky and that this is my job and that I get to meet so many incredible people that I think a lot a lot of other, you know, that not everybody gets to interact with. And so I was just so impressed with his resilience and his intelligence and his, he had a very calm demeanor, and he's just like a very gentle person. And so I think his spirit sort of impacted me. And I think it takes so much bravery to come to a new place and not speak a language, and not even speak a language that other people speak in the U.S., right? Like, he didn't even speak Spanish when he got here. And that, it takes so much bravery. And so I just feel honored that I got to learn that from him. And I would say that's true of most of the work I do. I'm just lucky to get to meet so many amazing people.
What was it like to take shots in Guatemala?
So I actually didn't film those. I have worked in other parts of Central America. I've worked in Mexico and Honduras, but my colleague was already in Guatemala for a different project, and she knew we were working on this story together, and so she spent a day and went and visited his family. I think she had a really wonderful time. They were really welcoming, and I think it was a little bit hard, that it was physically hard, that shot at the beginning. It was like up a volcano, and so she was carrying her camera up the volcano, which was really hard work.
Yeah. Do you know if he has any published works that we could read?
I think he's working on a book, but I don't think it's published. I know there was a small article about him in a Latinx publication in DC, and so there might be a poem in there. But if you guys are curious, I could ask him to send some. I'm sure he'd be thrilled.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
Does anyone have any other questions about that film? No. Okay. The next one is Las Luchadoras.
Yeah.
There's two of them.
Karina.
Karina, yeah.
Karina.
Are the trans clinics funded by the government?
So this is a really complicated question. I think for the most part, no. I think it depends on where you are, what your insurance is, if you are here with documents or not here with documents. So it really varies case to case. I work with a lot of other trans folks, and I know one girl that I work with is about the same age as all of you guys, is about to start some hormone therapy, and it is not covered by her insurance. Her family has insurance from their jobs, and it's not covered. So a lot of the times it's not, but I think there are a lot of clinics that are specific for trans folks that have funding from other sources.
Thank you.
But I'm not 100% positive on that. I think it depends a lot on where you are.
And then how did Karina get out of the detention center that she was in?
She was eventually released, I believe, because of her she won her asylum case, so she's now here. She lives in Phoenix. She's here with papers, and I believe it was just the proceedings of the asylum case that allowed her to be released.
Does anyone have any other questions about that film? No? Okay, the next one is Chiquita Bananas. What inspired you to make that film?
So I was in Honduras with a fellowship through the International Women's Media Organization, which you guys should check out because they fund women journalists from all over the world, and they produce really incredible work. So if you're looking for more like stories to read and to learn about, a lot of the work they do is around immigration in Latin America, and they publish them all on their website. So I was in Honduras with them, and we did like a crazy sort of security training while we were there, and so we were looking specifically. I was working with a friend who wrote the piece and who took the photographs. I don't know if you watched it on my website, you wouldn't have seen that, but on the actual page of Univision, there's another story. And we really wanted to do a lot of the media coverage around Honduras at the time was about how violent the country is. I mean, and there is a lot of violence in Honduras. But we also really wanted to show like a different side of the country, and we had heard like there's a very strong tradition of labor rights and labor activism in Honduras, especially around agriculture. And so when we got there, we found out that there was a strike happening, and so we decided to go and check it out.
Do you know how many of the fruits that we eat are distributed by Chiquita?
You know, I actually tried to look that up right before the call, and I don't know. They're one of the biggest corporations, so quite a few. And I think there's a statistic at the beginning of the video. Oh, but that's not about Chiquita. It's about like Honduran bananas in the U.S. because there are other companies besides Chiquita in Honduras. But they're definitely one of the giants. So there's a lot.
So how big are the plantations, and about how many people work on them?
I'm also not sure of that, and I tried to look up, but I couldn't find it. I think there's a big range. We went to, so the footage at the very beginning, a lot of that is from a plantation that was not on strike. So you've got a sense of how big it is from that drone shot. I mean, they're really, really big, and when you fly over Honduras, you could see a lot of bananas. So I think it varies, but I mean several hundred. A lot of people. It's a really big source of income for folks there.
Do you know, since the film was made, if the banana workers have gotten paid more, or if something's being done to give them better conditions, working conditions?
I think not, sadly. And the film took a while to come out, and so by the time it came out, the strike was already over. And from what I understand, people were fired and then rehired and not given their healthcare demands. So from what I know, things are basically the same as they were.
Anna, what if students here, like when they go to the supermarket to buy fruits, is there something that they can do as far as choosing which fruits to buy that would help make a difference?
So this is a really interesting question because we asked the main woman in the film too, should people in the U.S. stop buying? And she said no, because then I don't have a job, right? So the issue is not to boycott, but to rather like think how we could have an impact on changing conditions. And I should have sent you guys the article too. I'll send you the link to the Univision piece after this because there's some information in there. But one woman we interviewed said the best thing to do is actually to call your congressperson and say, we need to stop supporting the regimes in Honduras that are leading to labor rights abuses. So it's a really high up issue. But in the short term, we don't want people to lose their jobs. So there's not really an easy answer.
Would it make a difference if they bought organic or fair trade bananas?
Sorry, say that again?
Would it make a difference if they bought organic or fair trade bananas?
I think generally those are there are better labor practices. You probably have to research individual companies to know for sure. But then of course that's probably not going to help those people that are in this film. Like we would need more of those farms. So the hope, right, is that like if there's more demand for fair trade bananas, then maybe the companies treating people badly will like change their practices. So I think that's a good goal. Yeah. I think it's always, it's like really helpful to have awareness when you go somewhere to know how things are being made and make choices sort of based on what you can.
Does anyone have any other questions about the banana documentary? Yeah, Isaiah.
Did you film this stuff at the plantation? Were you the one filming that?
I did, yeah. Everything in that one was filmed by me.
And the last one is the EDMR therapy.
Yeah.
So did the man eventually get political asylum?
I am not positive. I actually don't know. I was only in touch with them. That one was filmed about 2 years ago, and I only kept in touch with them for about 6 months afterwards. So I'm not positive. I hope it.
And where was that film recorded?
That was in Oakland, California.
Ben had a question.
Ben, you have a question?
Yes, you did.
Oh yeah, I did.
Can you come
So-
closer? She can't. If you can come like over here.
So the slogan, or like the Chiquita Banana slogan says like Chiquita bananas all the way from Mexico, and it really doesn't. Well, that plantation was in Honduras, so it's not in Mexico. But it's kind of confused about that.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Could someone else repeat it?
I think he said the slogan of Chiquita Banana is all the way from Ben, can you listen?
Yes.
All the way from Mexico?
Yeah, that's.
So why is that the slogan if their bananas aren't coming from Mexico?
That's a great question. I have not seen that slogan. I think they have plantations in Mexico as well. So I believe they're all over Central America. They have a lot in Panama, I believe, and Guatemala. So maybe that particular slogan was just for the Mexican farms, I would guess. Usually, if you look on the banana in the supermarket, it'll say like country, and then under it, it'll say the country that it's from.
Any other questions about the banana movie? Yes, ma'am.
Or anything.
Or anything, maybe questions in general. Mario, can you step forward so she can hear? And then after Mario?
There's like gangs, right, in like Honduras or Mexico and Guatemala. And is it right for Chiquita to pay them money to not harm their workers if like that's what they're asking for, or else their workers will be harmed by them?
Sorry, guys, I can't quite hear.
Can you come?
Teacher might have to
Come around,
repeat that.
Jake, at the side. That's a complicated question too. Come on up here.
Okay. Just like get ready.
Yeah.
Hi.
Is it right for Chiquita Banana to pay pay gangs or something not to harm their workers?
Pay who not to harm their workers?
Like gangs that would like threaten to hurt the workers if not like for protection
Ah.
or something.
What do you think?
I don't know.
That's an interesting question. I don't know if that has come up. I mean, I think in general, a lot of companies, whether it's one person who sells baleadas, which are like the Honduran dish, if they sell one person who sells that on the street, they're probably hiring a gang in order to sell there. So I would imagine, I don't know this for a fact at all, but I would imagine there's some money already being sent to them because they have a lot of power in a lot of places in Honduras. So I don't know, it's really complicated, right? Because you don't want to continue the cycle of gang violence, but you also need to live and do your job.
And we have now three more questions. Jackson, Nikki, and
Okay.
Nancy. Jackson, can you say it in a big voice or come up?
Where do you live?
That's a very complicated question. The question was where I live, is that right?
Yes.
What's your
Yes.
social security
Yeah.
number?
What's the
It's a great journalistic question. I
Yeah.
can't share that. I live in between Phoenix, sometimes Washington, D.C., and sometimes Istanbul.
Wow.
Building in New York.
Nikki, you have a question. Nikki, can you come up? Seventh grade. Calm down in 3. Don't move. 7th grade. Do not move and stop talking.
I'm just chilling.
Okay, Nikki has a question for you.
Okay.
Nikki, go for it. You.
Are you working on another film? If so, what is it about?
Yeah, I'm working on a few things. Right now, like today, I'm editing a film about a disease called valley fever that's affecting a lot of migrant farm workers in California. It's a disease that comes in through the soil and gets passed around in the air. And then the film that I'm working on, like for myself and on my own, is a 10-year project that takes place in North Carolina, and it's following a young transgender girl from elementary school through high school. So that film will take about 15 years to make.
One last question, Anna. Danzy.
So, in the second Lost Doris movie about Dora, in the description it said that she was a self-proclaimed mother. What does that mean?
I'm not remembering that exactly. Probably I probably asked her to describe herself. I often ask people to describe themselves in 3 words, and I bet she said mother, activist, and something else. But that is kind of funny wording. I should check that out. Maybe I'll have to change it.
Okay.
Good question.
Thank you, Anna Clare. Thank you, Anna Clare, so much.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll send you the link, and I'll see if I can get a poem.
Thank you. Your ticket out the door
so much.
is this sheet filled out and rated.
She didn't say anything about